Welcome to Learn Digital Way. Most people don't fail at learning Unreal Engine because they're lazy, and they definitely don't fail because they just are not meant to make games. They fail because they walk into Unreal Engine with the complete wrong expectations. And honestly, that's understandable. Because from the outside, Unreal Engine looks magical. You open YouTube and you see cinematic forests, realistic lighting, explosions, AAA character movement systems, open worlds, multiplayer shooters, photorealistic graphics. And then somebody says, yeah, you can make this for free. So naturally, beginners download the engine thinking they're about to become game developers in a few months. But the moment they open Unreal Engine for the first time, reality hits them like a truck. Suddenly there are windows everywhere, outliners, viewports, materials, animation blueprints, Niagara systems, sequencers, nav meshes, Lumen, Nanite, AI controllers, interfaces, state machines, event dispatchers. And the beginner sits there staring at the screen, wondering, what am I even looking at? That confusion right there is where most people begin failing, not because they lack potential, but because Unreal Engine was never designed for complete beginners in the first place. Unreal Engine is an industry-grade toolset. It was built for professional teams making million-dollar projects. It assumes you already understand how games work. It assumes you understand programming logic. It assumes you understand 3D spaces, assets, animation pipelines, rendering systems, optimization, and architecture. But beginners don't know that. They think Unreal Engine is going to teach them game development from the ground up. It doesn't. It throws you directly into the deep end and expects you to swim. And when beginners struggle, they blame themselves instead of realizing the environment itself is overwhelming by design. Now, one of the biggest traps beginners fall into is something called tutorial inferno. This is probably the #1 reason people quit Unreal Engine. Here's how it usually happens. A beginner watches a YouTube tutorial called How to Make an RPG in Unreal Engine. The tutorial creator starts dragging nodes into blueprints. The beginner copies every single node exactly. Connect this wire here, add this branch, create this variable, compile, save. And for a moment, it feels amazing. The character moves, the inventory opens, the enemy attacks. The beginner thinks, I'm learning. But they're not actually learning. They're copying. And there's a massive difference between copying and understanding. Because the moment the tutorial ends and the beginner opens a blank project alone, everything collapses. Suddenly, they can't build anything without a guide. They don't know why the nodes exist. They don't know why the system works. They only know how to imitate steps. It's like memorizing dance moves without understanding rhythm. The illusion of progress disappears the minute independent problem solving becomes necessary. And that's where frustration begins. Because now the beginner realizes, I spent 3 months watching tutorials and I still can't make anything myself. That feeling destroys motivation. But again, this isn't entirely their fault. There is nothing wrong in watching YouTube tutorials. Most tutorials teach outcomes, not thinking. They teach recipes, not problem solving. And game development is fundamentally problem solving. Every mechanic is a puzzle. Every system is architecture. Every feature is logic interacting with other logic. If you don't learn how to think through systems, you stay dependent forever. Another major reason people fail is because they skip foundational knowledge. This is huge. Beginners often want to jump straight into creating their dream game. Maybe it's an open-world survival game. Maybe it's a Souls-like RPG. Maybe it's a multiplayer shooter with crafting systems, vehicles, and dynamic weather. But they don't even understand what an actor is yet. That's like trying to build a skyscraper before learning how concrete works. Unreal Engine introduces beginners to concepts that sound terrifying at first. Game modes, player controllers, pawns, blueprint interfaces, inheritance, casting, components, delegates. And beginners panic because they think, I'm too dumb for this. No, you're just encountering advanced architecture before learning fundamentals. That's the real issue. Most beginners never spend enough time learning simple interactions. They don't practice basic game logic. Things like, how do I make a door open? How do I detect collision? How do I spawn an object? How do I communicate between actors? These tiny systems are the real building blocks of game development, but beginners skip them because they want cinematic masterpieces immediately. And social media makes this worse. Everywhere online, people are showing finished projects. Nobody posts the learning phase. Nobody posts the 6 hours spent debugging a collision issue. Nobody posts the broken blueprints. Nobody posts the crashes. So beginners compare their Chapter 1 to somebody else's Chapter 10, and that comparison kills momentum. Now, let's talk about another brutal reason people fail. They choose projects that are way too big. This alone destroys thousands of aspiring developers. A beginner opens Unreal Engine for the first time and decides, I'm going to make the next GTA. No, you're not. Not yet. And that's okay. The problem is, beginners underestimate how massive game development really is. Even a simple game contains dozens of systems interacting together. Movement, animation, audio, UI, physics, saving systems, enemy AI, menus, optimization, lighting. Now, imagine trying to build a giant online open-world RPG while barely understanding blueprints. That project will collapse under its own weight almost immediately. Then the beginner interprets that failure emotionally. I guess I'm not good enough. But the issue wasn't talent. The issue was scope. Professional studios with hundreds of developers struggle to finish giant games, and a solo beginner expects to do it after 3 tutorials. That expectation is completely unrealistic. The smartest thing a beginner can do is build tiny games. Tiny, embarrassingly tiny. Make a cube move. Make a pressure plate open a door. Make a basic platformer. Clone Pong. Clone Flappy Bird. Why? Because small projects teach completion, and completion builds confidence. Every finished mechanic teaches architecture, debugging, structure, and logic. That experience compounds over time, but most beginners never reach that stage because they abandon projects long before learning anything meaningful. Now, here's another uncomfortable truth. Unreal Engine is incredibly overwhelming. People underestimate just how gigantic this engine really is. Unreal isn't just one tool, it's a system of systems. It contains rendering technology, animation pipelines, physics systems, AI frameworks, networking systems, material editors, audio engines, particle systems, cinematics, landscape generation, procedural tools. It's enormous. And beginners often think they're supposed to master everything at once. You're not. Even professionals specialize. Some people only focus on lighting. Some only do gameplay programming. Some only do animation systems. Some only build environments. But beginners think, I need to understand everything immediately. That mindset creates paralysis. And then the technical issues begin. Shader compilation takes forever. The editor crashes randomly. Projects corrupt. Lighting breaks. Packaging fails. Assets disappear. Performance tanks. And beginners spend more time troubleshooting than creating. That's emotionally exhausting. Especially because many new developers secretly expect creativity to feel fun all the time. But real development often feels messy, confusing, and frustrating. You solve one issue and create 3 more. That's normal. Another reason beginners fail is because they ignore best practices. At first, this seems harmless. Folders become messy, files are renamed randomly, no version control is used, logic gets dumped everywhere. And eventually, the project becomes impossible to manage. This is where beginners start creating what developers call spaghetti blueprints. Wires everywhere, no organization, massive event tick abuse, no separation of systems. The project technically works until it doesn't. Then debugging becomes a nightmare. And because the structure is bad, every new feature creates more chaos. This is why understanding architecture matters. Good developers aren't just people who make things work, they make things maintainable. That's a completely different skill. Now, we also need to talk about the C++ versus blueprint confusion. This topic scares beginners constantly. Some people say, you must learn C++. Others say, blueprints are enough. And beginners become trapped in endless debates instead of actually building games. Here's the truth. You do not need to be a C++ expert to start succeeding in Unreal Engine, but you do need to understand logical structure. Because even visual scripting is still programming. Blueprints are programming. You're still dealing with flow control, variables, functions, references, conditions, and architecture. The nodes may look friendlier than code, but the thinking process is the same. And beginners often avoid learning programming fundamentals because blueprints appear easier. But eventually, that gap catches up to them. They don't understand why systems break. They don't understand references. They don't understand communication between objects. So their progress stalls. Again, not because they're incapable, because fundamentals were skipped. Now, despite all of this, people absolutely can learn Unreal Engine successfully. But the mindset has to change completely. First, stop memorizing tutorials. Use tutorials as references, not crutches. Instead of blindly copying, pause constantly and ask, why did they do this? What problem does this solve? Can I rebuild this differently? That mindset changes everything. Second, focus on tiny systems. Learn interaction before ambition. Learn how objects communicate. Learn collision. Learn spawning. Learn input systems. Master fundamentals first. Third, accept that learning Unreal Engine takes time. A lot of time. People underestimate this massively. Becoming comfortable in Unreal is not a weekend hobby. It's closer to learning an entire profession. In many ways, it's comparable to earning a degree. And that's okay. The problem is modern internet culture convinces people they should master difficult skills instantly. But mastery takes years, not weeks, years. Fourth, use the same engine version as the tutorial you're following. This sounds small, but it matters. Nothing destroys beginners' confidence faster than following a tutorial where menus don't match, nodes changed names, or systems behave differently. Version mismatches create unnecessary confusion. Finally, and this might be the most important lesson of all, stop trying to make your dream game immediately. Your dream game should be your destination, not your starting point. Every small project is training. Every mechanic is practice. Every bug teaches something valuable. And the people who eventually succeed in Unreal Engine are usually not the most talented people. They're the people who survived the frustration long enough to develop real understanding. That's the difference. Persistence beats excitement, because excitement fades quickly when things get hard. But disciplined learning compounds. And eventually, something incredible happens. One day, you open a blank Unreal project, and instead of feeling overwhelmed, you start seeing possibilities. You understand the structure. You understand the systems. You understand how problems connect together. And that moment feels amazing because you earned it, not through shortcuts, not through hype, but through patience, repetition, experimentation, and persistence. So if you're struggling with Unreal Engine right now, Understand this clearly. Struggling does not mean you're failing. Confusion is part of the process. Frustration is part of the process. Debugging for hours is part of the process. Every experienced developer you admire went through the exact same thing. The only real failure is quitting before understanding how learning actually works. Because Unreal Engine is not designed to be easy. It's designed to be powerful, and learning to control that power takes time. All these gaps, Learn Digital Way is solving for you. We have carefully designed sessions specifically to help beginners avoid the most common reasons learners quit Unreal Engine. Instead of overwhelming learners with advanced systems too early, the sessions focus on building real understanding step by step. The goal is not just to help you copy mechanics, it's to help you understand how Unreal Engine actually works. From learning core fundamentals, to understanding blueprints logically, to building systems the correct way, to avoiding beginner mistakes that lead to frustration and burnout, every session is designed to create confidence, clarity, and long-term growth. Because real learning happens when you understand the why behind what you're building, not when you simply follow instructions. So if you're serious about learning Unreal Engine the right way, subscribe to Learn Digital Way and continue the journey with a structured path designed for beginners who want to become confident developers. Your game development journey does not have to be confusing. You just need the right guidance, the right mindset, and the patience to keep building, one step at a time. Thanks for joining. I will see you in the next one.